Maple Hollow, Ohio. It rested quietly, tucked away from the noise of bigger cities, a place where porch swings still creaked in the late afternoon breeze. People waved to each other on the sidewalk. They knew their neighbors. They knew their neighbors' dogs. Children's laughter echoed in the parks until dusk called them home. It was a town built on familiarity, on routines. A town that felt safe, a haven from the world's harsh edges, or so it appeared. Life here moved at a slower pace. The biggest event of the summer was always the county fair. Cotton candy and Ferris wheels under a hazy August sky. Kids rode bikes with a freedom long lost in urban sprawls. Doors were often left unlocked. Why bother? Trouble was something that happened elsewhere, on the news, in distant, troubled places. Not in Maple Hollow, not to their children. This was their shared belief, their unspoken pact, but safety can be an illusion. A comforting story whispered in the dark. Sometimes the most serene surfaces conceal the deepest cracks. Beneath the friendly smiles and neatly manicured lawns, darkness can take root. It can fester unseen, unacknowledged, waiting, even in a town like Maple Hollow. Perhaps especially in a town like Maple Hollow, where the belief in inherent goodness was so strong, so blinding. It was a dangerous kind of innocence. August 3rd, 2023, a Thursday. The air was warm, thick with the promise of another humid summer day. Lawns were being mowed, coffee was brewing, the mundane rhythm of life played out. But this Thursday was different. It held a chilling secret. A fracture was about to appear in the town's idyllic facade, one that would bleed into every home, every heart. By nightfall, Maple Hollow would be a name synonymous with fear. Connor Jameson was 8 years old. He had a gap-toothed smile, and eyes that still held the clear light of childhood. That morning, he wore his favorite navy blue cap, pulled low over his sandy hair, a red hoodie, a vibrant splash of color against the early light. On his back, a black backpack. It was covered in superhero patches, Iron Man, Captain America, symbols of courage, of protection. He was a small boy, setting out on a big adventure, the simple walk to school. His route was always the same, a map etched into his young mind. Down Mulberry Street he would walk, past the comforting aroma of Mrs. Gable's bakery, fresh bread, sugared donuts. Then across the vacant lot, a dusty shortcut, overgrown with weeds, a place where imagination could run wild. And straight from there, to Maple Hollow Elementary, its red brick walls a familiar welcoming sight. He had walked this path countless times before, each step unremarkable, until this day. Just after 7:45 a.m., Connor left his home. His mother, Dana, watched him go. A quick hug, a hurried goodbye, the slam of the screen door, these small moments, the ones you never think will be the last. The sun was climbing higher in the Ohio sky, casting long shadows that danced ahead of him. Another ordinary school day was supposed to begin, full of lessons and laughter and friends. That was the expectation. That was the promise of Maple Hollow. But Connor Jameson never made it to school. He never walked through the elementary's doors. He did not answer to his name during roll call. Somewhere between his front porch and the school bell, he vanished, swallowed by the quiet morning air, as if the mist itself had reached out and taken him. One moment he was there, a boy in a red hoodie. The next he was gone, utterly and terrifyingly gone. The first crack in the morning's calm came at 8:34 a.m., precisely. The school called the Jameson home, an impersonal automated voice first, alerting them to an unexcused absence. Then, a follow-up, the school secretary, her tone laced with a carefully controlled concern. Connor wasn't in his classroom. His desk was empty. Had he been kept home today? Was he ill? Simple questions, with no simple answers, just a knot of ice forming in Dana's stomach. At 8:46 a.m., Dana Jameson dialed 911. Her fingers fumbled on the keypad. Her breath hitched in her chest. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was a fragile thing, barely a whisper. Then a torrent, frantic, trembling. "He's never late," she managed to choke out. The words tumbled over each other. "He always comes home. He always tells me." Each syllable was a testament to her rising terror. The operator tried to calm her, but how do you calm a mother whose child has disappeared? Police responded immediately. The call crackled over their radios. A missing child. Maple Hollow Elementary. The urgency was palpable. Within 30 minutes, the town of Maple Hollow transformed. The gentle hum of morning routines was shattered, replaced by the sharp wail of sirens. Blue and red lights pulsed against sleepy storefronts. The illusion of safety evaporated. replaced by a cold, hard reality. Fear had come to their town. It had a name, Connor. A missing child alert was issued. It painted screens. It interrupted broadcasts. Connor's smiling school photo stared out, hauntingly innocent. Neighbors, their faces drawn and pale, joined the search. They fanned out, combing streets, peering into alleys. Volunteers quickly organized, printing flyers, taping them to lampposts, to telephone poles. Their hands shook. By noon, a K-9 unit was on the ground, but there was no sign of Connor Jameson. Not yet. Only questions. And a deepening void. The 911 call ripped through Maple Hollow's morning calm. Police cruisers, usually seen on leisurely patrols, now sped down quiet residential streets. Their sirens were a sharp, unfamiliar cry. Neighbors emerged from their homes, faces etched with concern. Whispers spread like wildfire. Connor Jameson was missing. Little Connor, the boy with the bright smile. Disbelief warred with a dawning, sickening realization. This was not a drill. This was not a misunderstanding. This was real, and it was happening here. Volunteers began to gather almost instantly. At the police station, at the school, at the edge of the park. They were mothers, fathers, teenagers, elderly residents, people who knew Connor, people who only knew of him. It didn't matter. A child was lost. Their child, the town's child. Flyers with Connor's school photo were hastily printed, his innocent face now a symbol of collective anxiety. They fanned out, a determined, somber army, taping hope to lampposts, pleading with every passerby, "Have you seen him?" The search was methodical, yet fueled by raw emotion. Officers divided the town into grids. They went door to door, their questions polite but firm. "Did you see anything unusual? Anything at all?" Neighbors combed their own yards. They checked sheds. They peered under parked cars. Every shadow seemed to hold a secret. Every rustle of leaves made hearts leap. The hours ticked by, each one heavier than the last. The initial surge of adrenaline began to give way. A gnawing dread started to creep in. By noon, the K-9 unit arrived. Sleek, powerful dogs, their noses to the ground. They sniffed a piece of Connor's clothing. Then they were off, weaving through streets, darting into backyards. Their handlers followed, grim-faced. The town held its breath, watching, waiting, hoping for a bark that signaled discovery. But the dogs found no clear trail. The scent was lost in the myriad of morning activities. The sounds of a town already too alive before the alarm was raised. Hope, a fragile butterfly, began to flutter precariously. Section 2. Hours turned to dusk. Hope wanes. The August sun beat down relentlessly. The heat shimmered above the asphalt roads. Morning bled into a long, agonizing afternoon. For Dana Jameson, time had ceased to have meaning. Each minute was an eternity of torment. She sat in her living room, surrounded by friends, by family, but utterly alone in her fear. The police offered updates, no news, no sightings, no Connor. The town too felt the oppressive weight of the passing hours. The frantic energy of the morning search slowly began to fray, replaced by a weary, desperate persistence. As afternoon shadows began to lengthen, a new kind of anxiety settled over Maple Hollow. Dusk was approaching. The golden hour, usually a time of peaceful transition, now felt like a deadline, a closing window of opportunity. Darkness would make the search infinitely harder. It would bring new fears, new dangers. The searchers pushed on, their faces streaked with sweat and grime, their voices hoarse from calling Connor's name. Each unanswered call echoed the growing despair in their hearts. A helicopter was brought in. Its blades thudded rhythmically against the evening sky, a mechanical heartbeat above a town gripped by fear. It circled the outskirts of Maple Hollow, over the dense woods that bordered the town, over the fields stretching towards the highway. Its powerful searchlight, not yet needed, was a promise of the night to come. Below, the teams on the ground looked up, a small flicker of renewed hope, or perhaps a stark reminder of the vastness of the search, the sheer impossibility of it all. Night fell, not gently, but with a heavy finality. The organized search had to be scaled back. It was too dangerous to continue in the darkness for the many volunteers. The police and professional teams would press on, but the civilian effort paused. A heavy silence descended upon Maple Hollow, broken only by the distant hum of the helicopter, and the quiet, desperate prayers whispered in countless homes. Connor was still missing. The day had offered no answers, only a deeper, colder fear. Section 3. A glimmer in the dark, the Mulberry Street find. It was 9:03 p.m., the night was thick, stars were beginning to prick the inky blackness above. Most of the volunteer searchers had reluctantly returned home, exhausted, defeated. But a few police officers continued their meticulous sweep, retracing routes, rechecking areas. And then, a call came over the radio. A find. Behind a row of overflowing recycling bins on Mulberry Street. Not far from the bakery Connor passed every morning, a small dark shape, a child's backpack. The backpack was black, streaked with dust, its main zipper was open, pulled wide. Inside, nothing, it was completely empty. The superhero patches, Iron Man's stoic face, Captain America's shield, seemed to mock the grim discovery. These symbols of protection had failed. The emptiness of the bag spoke volumes. It wasn't just dropped, it felt discarded, rifled through. A cold knot of dread tightened in the chests of the officers at the scene. This was not a good sign. This felt deliberate. The location was chillingly significant. Mulberry Street, Connor's route. But more than that, the backpack lay mere yards from an abandoned house. Number 39 Mulberry. A blight on the otherwise well-kept street. Boarded-up windows stared out like vacant eyes. The paint peeled, the porch sagged. Locals said it had been empty for nearly 2 decades, since old Mrs. Henderson passed away. It was a place children whispered about, a place they dared each other to approach, but rarely did. A forgotten relic, now thrust into the spotlight. Officer Paul Keene, a veteran with tired eyes, noticed something others might have missed in the dim glow of their flashlights. A rear window of the derelict house. It was broken, but there was no shattered glass on the overgrown grass outside. The edges of the break were clean, almost too clean, as if the glass had been removed carefully, from the inside, or pushed inwards with precision. It wasn't random vandalism, it felt calculated, deliberate, a silent invitation, or a warning. Section 1. The Threshold of Dread. Entering 39. Mulberry. The broken window at 39 Mulberry Street became a focal point, a dark eye staring back at the investigators. Yellow police tape now cordoned off the derelict property. It flapped gently in the night breeze, a stark warning. The house itself seemed to exude a palpable sense of decay, of secrets long kept. Officers stood guard throughout the remaining hours of darkness. No one would enter until morning, until daylight could pierce some of its shadows. The decision was tactical, preserve any potential evidence, but it also felt like a small concession to the unease the house inspired, a reluctance to brave its depths in the dead of night. The next morning, August 4th, dawned gray and overcast, as if the sky itself mirrored the town's somber mood. Authorities formally breached the front door. The wood splintered easily. The lock, rusted and ancient, offered little resistance. A wave of stale air rolled out to meet them, thick, musty, the smell of years of neglect. Dust lay like a shroud over every surface. Cobwebs hung like tattered lace in the corners. Sunlight struggled to penetrate the grimy, boarded-up windows, casting the interior in a dim, unsettling twilight. Each footstep echoed unnaturally in the silence. They moved cautiously, room by room, living room, dining room. Each space was a time capsule of abandonment, furniture draped in ghostly white sheets, wallpaper peeling in long, mournful strips. But it was the kitchen that drew their attention. Here, the dust on the linoleum floor was disturbed, not by animals, not by the wind, but by footprints, fresh footprints, small ones. The unmistakable print of a child's sneaker, leading away from the back door, leading towards the pantry at the far end of the room. A cold dread began to seep into the investigators. The pantry door creaked open on protesting hinges. Inside, shelves were lined with canned goods. Their labels faded, their contents long expired. Relics of a life abruptly ended decades ago. It seemed like another dead end, another layer of forgotten history. But one officer, running his hand along the back wall of the pantry, felt it. A slight give, a loose panel. Behind it, almost invisible in the dim light, was a small metal latch. He slid it across. A section of the shelving unit clicked. It swung inward, revealing not a solid wall but a dark opening, a concealed door. Section 2. Beneath the floorboards, a hidden descent. The discovery of the concealed door sent a ripple of tension through the team. This was no ordinary abandoned house. This was something else entirely. Something constructed with intent, with secrecy. The opening was narrow, dark. Beyond it, a set of crude wooden stairs descended into blackness. No light switch was visible, only the oppressive unknown of what lay below. Flashlights cut sharp beams into the void. They revealed rough-hewn steps, steep and treacherous. The air that wafted up was colder, more stagnant than the air in the house above. It carried a faint, unidentifiable odor. One by one, officers began the descent. Their boots thudded heavily on the wooden treads. The staircase was short, perhaps 10 or 12 steps, but each one felt like a journey further away from the known world, further into the heart of whatever darkness resided in this forgotten place. The silence was absolute, broken only by their own breathing and the creak of the stairs under their weight. There was a sense of trespass, of entering a space that was never meant to be found, a place designed for hiding, or for keeping things hidden. At the bottom of the stairs they found themselves in a small, low-ceilinged room. It was not a typical basement, not a place for storage or utilities. It was something else, purpose-built. The walls were bare concrete, cold to the touch. In the center of the dusty floor, a small mattress lay directly on the ground. Beside it, a couple of neatly folded blankets. Several empty juice boxes were scattered nearby, and next to them, a half-eaten apple, beginning to brown at the edges, signs of recent, albeit sparse, occupation. The scene was deeply unsettling. It spoke of a captive, of a child. On one of the stark concrete walls, a single drawing had been taped, rendered in bright crayon, a crude depiction of a sun and stick figures, holding hands, a child's attempt to bring light into a dark place. The room was eerily silent, cold, still. There were no windows, no natural light, only the harsh glare of their flashlights, illuminating a scene of quiet horror, a carefully constructed prison, waiting for its occupant, or perhaps having just lost one. Section 3. The Room of Silence. Echoes of a Missing Boy. Then, an officer's flashlight beam settled on a small object in the far corner of the room, lying partially obscured by one of the folded blankets. It was a navy blue cap, instantly recognizable, the same cap Connor Jameson had been wearing when he left for school. The officer picked it up carefully, gloved hands turning it over. Stitched into the fabric in faded yellow thread were two small initials. CJ, there was no doubt. This was Connor's cap. The air in the small, cold room seemed to grow heavier, colder. The implications were immediate and horrifying. Connor had been here, in this hidden, squalid room, beneath the abandoned house. He had sat on that mattress, he had drunk those juice boxes, he had perhaps even drawn that picture on the wall. The knowledge hit them with the force of a physical blow, but he wasn't here now. The room was empty, devoid of life. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no obvious indications of how he might have left, or been taken. Just a profound, chilling absence. As they meticulously documented the scene, another item came to light. A walkie-talkie, black plastic, simple, the kind a child might use. It was lying near the mattress, powered off. An officer carefully bagged it. It was covered in fingerprints, smudges and partials. Some were small, likely Connor's, but others were larger, distinctly adult. Forensic technicians would later confirm a partial print from an unknown adult male, a ghost in the machine, a silent accomplice, or the architect of this nightmare. The scene was too clean, too calculated, the half-eaten apple, the neatly folded blankets. It didn't feel like a panicked abduction. It felt methodical, planned, as if someone knew exactly what they were doing, and had perhaps done it before. The discovery of the basement room, and Connor's cap within it, transformed the missing person case into something far more sinister. The investigation escalated instantly. The local police knew they were dealing with something beyond their resources, beyond their darkest imaginings. The FBI would be called. This was no longer just Maple Hollow's tragedy. Section 1. Echoes of the Unknown. The Investigation Deepens. The discovery in the hidden basement sent shockwaves far beyond Maple Hollow. This was no longer a simple missing child case. It was a meticulously planned abduction. The small, cold room beneath 39 Mulberry Street spoke of a predator, someone with patience, someone with a chilling understanding of concealment. The local police force, though dedicated, recognized the escalating complexity. The FBI was formally brought in. Their resources, their expertise were now critical. Agents began arriving within hours, their presence a somber acknowledgement of the darkness that had taken root. Forensic teams descended upon the basement room with an almost reverent intensity. Every surface was swabbed, every fiber collected. Hair samples were carefully lifted. They were searching for the faintest trace, a whisper of the person, or people, responsible. The walkie-talkie, with its damning collection of fingerprints, became a key piece of evidence. The partial adult male print was of particular interest. It was run through every database, federal, state, international. The investigators waited, hoping for a match, a name, a face to attach to the unseen monster. But the databases remained silent. No hits, no matches. The adult fingerprint didn't belong to any known criminal. It didn't link to any previous cases. It was a ghost print, belonging to someone who seemingly didn't exist in the official records. The DNA found in the room, apart from Connor's, was minimal, and equally unhelpful. The perpetrator was careful, or perhaps just lucky. The lack of immediate leads was frustrating. A growing sense of unease settled over the investigators. They were hunting a phantom. The town of Maple Hollow watched, holding its collective breath. The news of the hidden room had spread despite official attempts to control information. Fear tightened its grip. If such a place could exist hidden beneath their very noses, what else lurked in the shadows? The initial hope for Connor's swift return began to curdle into a more profound dread. The calculated nature of his abduction suggested a level of sophistication that was terrifying. This was not an impulsive act. This was the work of a seasoned predator, and he was still out there. Section 2. A Ghost in the Records. The Enigma of Ronald Pierce. Amidst the high-tech forensics and federal agents, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Allison Haynes, a retired detective. She had recently returned to Maple Hollow, seeking a quieter life after years on a big city force. But the old instincts remained sharp. The disappearance of Connor Jameson had pulled her back in. Unofficially at first. Then, as the case deepened, her insights became invaluable. She possessed a knowledge of the town's history, its forgotten corners, its buried secrets, something the newer officers lacked. Haynes decided to delve into the history of 39 Mulberry Street itself. Who owned this house of horrors? She spent hours sifting through dusty municipal archives, pulling old property deeds, tax records, permit applications. The house had changed hands several times over the decades, but one name stood out. The owner since 2001, a man named Ronald Pierce. The name meant nothing to the current investigators. It hadn't appeared on any recent tax rolls. It hadn't flagged in any initial searches. It was just a name, on old paper. Further digging revealed something chilling. Ronald Pierce had been declared legally dead in 2005, drowned, in a boating accident, far away, in Maine, a tragic end, seemingly unrelated to the current nightmare in Maple Hollow. Most would have closed the file at that point, a dead owner, a cold trail. But Haynes was thorough. Something about the report felt off, too neat, too simple. She decided to make a call. To the small coastal town in Maine where Pierce had supposedly met his end. The response from the Maine authorities was perplexing. Yes, they had a record of the incident. A boating accident, Ronald Pierce, deceased. But their files were thin, almost non-existent. No photographs of the deceased, no detailed coroner's report, just a single-page incident log and a signature at the bottom, the name of the reporting officer, or perhaps a witness. It was illegible, smudged. A dead end that felt more like a carefully constructed wall. Ronald Pierce, it seemed, was a ghost in more ways than one. Section 3. A Voice from the Past, The Arrival of Margaret. 3 days into the intensified investigation, with the mystery of Ronald Pierce hanging heavy in the air, something new arrived. A small, unassuming package, addressed to the Maple Hollow Police Department. No return address, no postmark. It looked as if it had been hand-delivered, slipped quietly onto a desk or through a mail slot. Inside, wrapped in plain brown paper, was an old cassette tape, the kind that hadn't been common for years, and a single folded piece of paper. A note, typed, just 7 words, "Play this, and ask about Margaret." The officers in the incident room exchanged uneasy glances. Margaret? Who was Margaret? The name meant nothing to most of them. The cassette tape felt like a relic from another era. Finding a working player took some effort. An old boombox was eventually located in a storage closet. Dust was wiped from its surface. With a sense of trepidation, an officer inserted the tape. Pressed play. The speakers crackled with static. A long, drawn-out hiss. Then, a sound emerged. A voice. Male. Distorted, as if speaking through water. Or a cheap voice modulator. Whispering. The whispered words sent a chill through the room. They said she was crazy. But Margaret knew. She knew what he did. We buried the truth in that house. And now, he wants another. Just like before. The voice was calm, almost conversational, despite the distortion. The message, however, was anything but. It hinted at a history, at a previous victim, at a truth deliberately concealed. The words "that house" could only refer to 39 Mulberry. The room fell silent. The implications of the tape were staggering. Connor was not the first. Detective Allison Haynes felt a jolt of recognition. Margaret. The name, combined with the reference to that house, stirred a dormant memory. A case from long ago, before her retirement. She immediately headed back to the archives. This time she wasn't looking for property records. She was looking for a ghost, a missing girl. She searched for Margaret, and there it was, buried deep in the cold case files. Margaret Willow Gaines, missing, 2003, 9 years old, last seen walking home from Maple Hollow Elementary, just 1 block from where Connor Jameson had vanished. Her case had gone cold. No suspects, no body, no resolution, until now. Section 1. The Forest's Unmarked Path. The hour was late. 3:17 a.m., August 12th. A suffocating darkness clung to the remote cabin, miles from Maple Hollow's troubled streets. Here, 32 miles north, civilization felt like a distant memory. The search team, led by Detective Allison Haynes, moved with a grim determination. Inside the dilapidated structure, the air was heavy with rot and neglect. And then, they found it. Connor Jameson's missing left shoe, small, muddy. A tangible piece of the lost boy, lying discarded on the filthy floor. A chilling testament to his presence in this desolate place. Hope, already so fragile, seemed to wither further in the oppressive gloom. Beside the shoe, another discovery, a hand-drawn map, crude, childlike, rendered in what looked like red crayon on a scrap of paper. Jagged lines pointed vaguely into the dense surrounding forest. A large, ominous X marked a presumed destination. Scrawled beneath it in shaky, almost desperate handwriting were 2 words, "Don't follow," a warning, a plea, or a taunt. The ambiguity was unnerving, but there was no choice. Connor was out there. Margaret's ghost lingered. They had to follow, regardless of the unseen dangers the crude map hinted at, regardless of the chilling command. The cabin designated MGH stood silent, brooding. The team approached with extreme caution. Each officer acutely aware that they were stepping into a place of profound darkness, a place likely designed by Ronald Pierce, or Thomas Vellner, or James Withers, the man of many names and no true face. The air around the small structure felt colder, heavier. There were no outward signs of recent occupation, no footprints in the damp earth, no smoke from the chimney, just an overwhelming sense of past horrors, of suffering that had soaked into the very wood of its walls. They steeled themselves for what lay within. The door creaked open reluctantly. Inside, the gloom was almost complete. Dust motes danced in the thin shafts of light that pierced through cracks in the boarded windows. The interior was stark, minimalist, almost like a stage set. A small, rough wooden table stood in the center of the single room. 4 mismatched chairs were arranged around it, as if waiting for guests who would never willingly arrive, or perhaps guests who had been forced to stay. The scene was eerily still, undisturbed, yet it screamed of calculated cruelty, a deliberate, horrifying simplicity. Their attention was immediately drawn to an object on the table, a single, unassuming metal box. It was old, rusted at the edges but undeniably solid. There was no keyhole visible, only a 3-digit combination lock on its front, a silent challenge, a gatekeeper to further secrets. What horrors, or what clues did it contain? The tension in the small cabin became almost unbearable. Every officer felt the weight of the moment, the feeling that they were on the precipice of a significant and likely terrible revelation. This box felt like the heart of this hidden place. Detective Haynes, her gaze sweeping the room, noticed them. Faint scratches etched into the grimy surface of the wooden table just below the locked box. She leaned closer. 3 numbers, 1973, 1973. Her mind flashed back to the cold case files, to the faded newspaper clippings about Margaret Gaines, an almost forgotten detail, Margaret's mother, her birth year. Could it be that simple, that personal? With a nod from the team leader, Haynes carefully turned the dials. 1, click, 9, click, 7, click, 3. A final louder click echoed in the stillness. The lock had sprung open. With bated breath, Detective Haynes lifted the lid of the metal box. Inside there was no ransom money, no weapons, no grand theatrical statement. Instead, nestled on a bed of yellowed cotton, lay something far more insidious. 8 cassette tapes, standard audio cassettes. Each one was meticulously labeled, not with names but with dates. The first label read August 16, 2003, the day immediately following Margaret Gaines' disappearance. A cold dread settled upon the investigators. This was a chronicle, a timeline of terror, recorded for a purpose they could only begin to guess. They had brought a portable player. The first tape was inserted, the whir of the mechanism, then a sound that clawed at their souls. A child's voice, thin, whimpering, filled with an unimaginable terror. It was Margaret. "He says I can't leave," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He says no one's looking, but I saw them. I saw the lights." The second tape, dated October 22, 2003, revealed another layer of horror. "I hear her." Margaret's voice, a little stronger, a little colder, stated, "Another girl. She cries too." This was not just about Margaret, this was a collection. The tapes continued, a horrifying archive of stolen childhoods, spanning over 3 years initially. Different voices, different children, each recording a brief, agonizing window into their captivity, their despair. Then the final tape. It was different. It was blank, no recorded voice, no cries, just the hiss of an empty reel spinning, a chilling silence. Later, forensic audio technicians would painstakingly analyze that silence. Buried deep beneath the static, almost imperceptible, they would find faint distortions, breathing, slow, male, calm, and then a single chilling whisper, "Don't come here again," a direct threat to anyone who stumbled upon this place. But the cabin had one more secret to yield. Beneath a loose floorboard, hidden from immediate view, they found a photo album. Its cover was worn, its pages yellowed with age. The first photograph was of Margaret Gaines, smiling, wearing her red sweater with the duck, the date stamped in the corner, July 19, 2003, weeks before she vanished. The next photo showed a group of children, sitting at the very table in this cabin. Their faces were blank, their eyes empty, staring at the camera. And in the corner of each photo, tiny embossed initials, RP then, the most recent photo. A boy, Connor Jameson, holding a handwritten sign, August 9, 2023. And behind him, reflected in a dark mirror on the cabin wall, the unmistakable, blurry face of their phantom, Ronald Pierce, watching, always watching. The investigators made a difficult decision. They had to go public. The photograph from the second cabin showing Connor Jameson holding that dated sign was released. The blurry image of the man in the mirror, the spectral face of Ronald Pierce, or Thomas Vellner, was disseminated to every news outlet. Alongside it, carefully selected audio clips from the recovered cassette tapes were broadcast. The whimpering voices of unknown children, a chorus of stolen innocence, now echoed across the airwaves. The public reaction was visceral, fear, outrage, a desperate hunger for answers. The FBI confirmed 3 of the voices matched children missing from neighboring counties, cases long grown cold, never before linked to Maple Hollow or to each other. But the man himself, their primary target, remained a phantom. He did not exist, not in any official capacity that could be easily traced or identified. No fingerprints in any law enforcement database matched the partials they had. No dental records surfaced from any military or employment archives that could be linked to the face or the aliases. He had no discernible past, no digital footprint, no paper trail that led to a concrete identity. It was as if he had materialized from the shadows, a bogeyman made real. The sheer scale of his operation, hinted at by the tapes and the geographically disparate missing children cases, began to dawn on the task force. This was not the work of an opportunist. This was the work of a meticulous, patient, and terrifyingly effective predator who had likely been active for decades, moving like a ghost through the cracks in society. Then, when the investigation seemed to have hit another impenetrable wall, an unexpected lifeline emerged. An anonymous call. It came into a general tip line, routed through a burner phone purchased with cash in a gas station in rural Kentucky. The connection was poor, crackling with static. The caller's voice was hesitant, laced with an almost palpable fear, as if the very act of speaking these words was a monumental risk. They did not give a name, they did not ask for anything. They simply stated they had information. Information about the man in the photographs. The man everyone was looking for. The man whose face now haunted the national news. The caller's words when they finally came were a bombshell. He He used to be my foster dad." A pause, filled with the sound of ragged breathing. Back in '97, in Detroit, his name wasn't Pierce or Vellner. His name was James Withers. The voice on the other end of the line recounted a chilling story. Withers had taken the caller and 2 other foster children out of the state system. He had promised them a better life, something he termed private education. But there were no schools, only a series of isolated barns, run-down trailers, and places eerily similar to the cabins found near Maple Hollow. Then, one night, James Withers had vanished. He had taken the youngest girl with him, leaving the other 2 alone, terrified in the dark. Section 2. Peeling back layers, the Withers connection. The anonymous tip, the hesitant voice from Kentucky, sent a fresh surge of adrenaline through the exhausted task force. James Withers, a new name, a new city, Detroit, a new time frame, the late 1990s. It was the first concrete lead that felt different, that felt grounded in a specific, verifiable past, however distant. Investigators were immediately dispatched. Hope, a dangerous but necessary fuel, began to flicker anew. Could this be the thread that finally unraveled the entire monstrous tapestry? Could James Withers be the original identity, the starting point for this chameleon of cruelty? The man who became Pierce, who became Vellner, who haunted the woods and basements of unsuspecting towns. The search for records on James Withers began. It was a painstaking process. Digging through archaic systems, sifting through boxes of old, often poorly maintained foster care files from Wayne County, Michigan. The paper was brittle, the ink faded. These were the forgotten histories of forgotten children, lives that had slipped through the cracks of an overburdened system decades ago. Hours turned into days. The team meticulously scanned every document, every caseworker's note, looking for any mention of James Withers, looking for the children he had supposedly taken under his wing for private education. The air in the records office was thick with the smell of old paper and a quiet desperation. And then, they found it. A thin folder. James Withers, listed as a temporary foster guardian, approved alarmingly with minimal background checks, a common failing of the system at the time. The file detailed his brief tenure. It confirmed the anonymous caller's timeline. Withers had indeed been a guardian to 3 children. And then, the chilling entry March, 1998. Withers had disappeared, vanished without a trace. He had taken 1 child with him, a 7-year-old girl named Sarah. The other 2, including the presumed anonymous caller, had been found abandoned several days later in a remote farmhouse. The case, shockingly, had barely been investigated. The children were wards of the state. Their disappearance, their trauma, had become just another statistic, another unsolved footnote in a flawed system. 3 names: Ronald Pierce, the dead voter; Thomas Vellner, the vanished nurse from Missouri; and now James Withers, the foster dad from Detroit who spirited children away. One horrifying face, blurred in photographs but seared into the minds of investigators and the public. One predator, operating with chilling impunity across state lines, across decades. He had exploited the system, preyed on the vulnerable, and erased his tracks with terrifying skill. The question that now burned in every investigator's mind was not just who he was, but where he was now. And how many other names, how many other lives had he consumed and discarded along his dark journey? Armed with the knowledge of James Withers and the horrifying pattern of deception it implied, Detective Haynes and the FBI team returned to the second cabin, Margaret Gaines' house, MGH. The place felt different now, no longer just a scene of past horrors, but a potential key to ongoing ones. They had found tapes, they had found photographs, but the man they hunted was a master of concealment, of layers. They suspected the cabin, like the house on Mulberry Street, held more secrets than it had initially surrendered. Every floorboard, every wall panel, was now viewed with suspicion. They were looking for the subtle tells, the hidden compartments, the places where truth, or its grotesque parody, might be interred. The decision was made to excavate. If he buried secrets in basements, perhaps he buried them in the earth itself. The area around the cabin and beneath it became the new focus. Using ground-penetrating radar, they scanned the perimeter. An anomaly was detected directly under the cabin's main room. The soil density was different, disturbed. The team began to dig, carefully, methodically, shovelful by shovelful. The damp earth yielded nothing at first, just rocks, roots, the detritus of the forest floor. The air grew thick with anticipation. The silence of the woods pressed in, broken only by the scrape of tools and the heavy breathing of the searchers. 4 feet down, a shovel struck something hard, something wooden. The digging became more delicate, brushes replaced shovels. Slowly, painstakingly, the object was revealed. It was a box, a small wooden coffin, child-sized, sealed shut. A wave of sickness and dread washed over the team. The silence in the clearing became absolute, heavy, and profound. This was it. The grim discovery they had both anticipated and feared. Had they found Margaret, or one of the other children from the tapes? The implications were horrifying. The woods seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the truth to be exhumed from its cold embrace. With a collective tension that was almost unbearable, the lid of the small coffin was pried open, but inside, there was no body. No human remains. Instead, nestled on a bed of faded fabric, lay a mannequin. A child-sized doll, dressed in a faded red sweater, eerily similar to the one Margaret Gaines had worn in her last photograph. Pinned to its chest was a small, typed note. It read, "You're looking for bones, but I bury truth." And beneath the mannequin, lying glinting in the disturbed earth, was a single rusted key. Attached to it was a small metal tag. Etched into the tag were 2 letters, M.H. Margaret's house. But this wasn't for the cabin. They knew with a chilling certainty where this key belonged. 39 Mulberry Street. The rusted key, discovered beneath the cruel mockery of the mannequin, offered a chilling revelation. Its small metal tag bore 2 stark letters, M.H. Margaret's house. But this key was not for the second cabin hidden deep within the whispering woods. No. Its teeth were worn in a different pattern. It belonged to the original House of Horrors. 39 Mulberry Street, the place where the nightmare had begun. Detective Allison Haynes, her face a mask of grim resolve, knew they had to return. She ordered an immediate, exhaustive second sweep of the abandoned property. A cold certainty gripped her. They had missed something vital, something buried even deeper than the first hidden room. The team re-entered the derelict house on Mulberry Street. The air inside remained heavy, stale with dust and the lingering scent of decay. A palpable sense of dread clung to every cobweb, every peeling strip of wallpaper. This time, their search was more focused, more desperate. They concentrated on the first basement, the known hiding place. A solid-looking wall behind the ancient rust-caked furnace drew their attention. It appeared unremarkable, just another section of crumbling foundation. But a series of hollow taps betrayed its carefully constructed secret. There was a void behind it, a deliberately concealed space. Hope mingled with a sickening fear in the cramped, oppressive air. Sledgehammers were brought in. The sound of shattering concrete and splintering wood echoed through the otherwise silent house. Each blow was delivered with grim determination. Dust and debris filled the already choked air, momentarily obscuring their vision. And then, as the dust began to settle, it was revealed, illuminated by the harsh, unforgiving glare of their tactical flashlights. A second staircase. It was narrower than the first, steeper. It plunged downwards, leading further underground, into an impenetrable darkness that no blueprint had ever dared to record. This was a sub-basement, uncharted territory, a new layer to the house's monstrous secret. Hesitantly, they descended into the oppressive silence of this newly discovered chamber. The room below was shockingly small, almost claustrophobic. The walls were crudely padded, absorbing all sound, creating an unnerving, deathly quiet. A single small bare bed frame stood in one corner. Opposite it, a dusty, dilapidated bookshelf held a few tattered, forgotten books. But it was the far concrete wall that seized their attention. It was covered in a chilling testament to lost time, to unending despair. Hundreds upon hundreds of chalk tally marks, scratched frantically. Beside them, a child's name scrawled over and over, as if in a desperate, fading prayer. Margaret. The discovery of the tally marks, the endless repetition of Margaret's name etched into the cold concrete, sent a fresh wave of visceral horror through the seasoned investigators. This was not merely a temporary holding cell. This had been a long-term prison, a place of profound and sustained suffering. But the sub-basement had not yet yielded all of its horrifying secrets. That was not the only twist awaiting them in this desolate, forgotten chamber of despair. In the far corner of the room, almost entirely hidden by the deep shadows, stood a small, unassuming, and very old wooden desk. It seemed out of place, yet deeply, terrifyingly significant. An officer, his breath catching in his throat, cautiously approached the desk. He pulled open its single, stuck drawer. The wood protested with a loud grating creak that echoed unnaturally in the suffocating silence of the padded room. Inside, nestled amongst layers of thick dust and the tangible aura of despair, lay a journal. Its cover was battered and worn, its pages were yellowed and brittle with age. With trembling gloved hands, another officer lifted it out. The first page was carefully opened. Shaky, spidery cursive script filled the fragile paper. The words, raw and devastating, seemed to leap out at them. "My name is Margaret. I'm alive. But I don't know who I am anymore." The journal entries spanned an almost unbelievable 10 years. Each fragile page was a harrowing chronicle of unimaginable suffering, of crushing isolation, of systematic psychological torment, of a childhood not just stolen but deliberately warped and twisted beyond any recognition. The careful, methodical entries detailed her days, her fears, her fading memories of the outside world. The last entry, written in a hand that was almost illegible, was dated June 2, 2015. The implications of this date were staggering, almost too horrific to comprehend fully. Margaret Gaines, the girl presumed dead for over a decade, did not die in 2003. She had lived on. For 12 more torturous years, Margaret had existed in that subterranean hell, beneath the quiet, unsuspecting streets of Maple Hollow, directly beneath the feet of its oblivious residents who went about their daily lives, unaware of the horror unfolding below, and no one in the town, no one in the wider world ever knew. The questions now screamed for answers, echoing in the minds of the investigators. So where was she now in 2023? DNA carefully extracted from the journal matched hair found in the second cabin. It also matched traces of blood found on one of the walkie-talkies. But none of this evidence was recent. None of it could confirm if Margaret was currently alive, or if she had finally, somehow, escaped her tormentor. Or had she simply been moved to yet another hidden prison, another dark chapter in her stolen life? The investigation into Margaret's current whereabouts and her potential fate seemed to hit an immediate, impenetrable wall. The journal ended in 2015. Years had passed. Then, the true, gut-wrenching cliffhanger arrived. It came unexpectedly. A week later. Miles away from the traumatized town of Maple Hollow, in a brightly lit, utterly ordinary grocery store in a neighboring county, a woman walked in. She appeared to be in her mid-30s. Her blonde hair was neatly tied back. She wore a simple, yet familiar, red sweater. She paused, glanced directly at a store security camera, a small, almost imperceptible, chilling smile touching her lips. Then she turned, walked out, and vanished into the mundane bustle of the afternoon. Initially, no one recognized her. She was just another anonymous shopper on a routine errand. But when the store's security footage was flagged and meticulously enhanced by FBI analysts, the blood of every investigator involved in the Maple Hollow case ran cold. There, reflected with horrifying clarity in the convex security mirror positioned above the checkout counter, seemingly hovering just behind the enigmatic woman in the red sweater, was a man. He was watching her intently. He wore a plain brown baseball cap pulled low. He was holding a nondescript plastic grocery bag. It was the small, almost overlooked details that stopped their hearts and stole their breath. This was him. On that seemingly innocuous grocery bag, clearly visible in the enhanced footage, written in thick, bold black marker, were 4 chilling words. "See you soon, Connor." The image, the implicit threat, went viral almost instantly. The FBI swiftly confirmed a 99% facial recognition match. The man in the reflection was undeniably Ronald Pierce, or Thomas Vellner, or James Withers, or whatever other name this phantom, this architect of nightmares, truly used. The town of Maple Hollow, already reeling and deeply traumatized by the events of the preceding weeks, sank further into a collective despair. Connor Jameson was still missing. Margaret Gaines might be alive, but her current role, her allegiance, was terrifyingly, dangerously unclear. Was she a survivor, a victim finally freed? Or had she, through years of unimaginable conditioning, become the next hunter in this horrifying, endless game? The tapes recovered from the cabins, the disturbing children's drawings, the desperate whispered recordings, the hidden basement rooms, the isolated cabins deep in the woods, all of it, every single piece of this horrifying puzzle, pointed towards one inescapable, soul-crushing conclusion. This was never about just one child, it was about all of them. It was a grotesque, repeating cycle. A meticulously calculated pattern. A deadly intricate game of stolen identity, of absolute psychological control, of suffocating, unbreakable silence. And somewhere out there, in the whispering pines, in the hidden basements, in the dark, forgotten gaps between official records and shattered lives, someone is still playing. This is True Crime News. We'll be watching, will you?